Go to Joe 303.
Tomorrow's Superstars Tuesday.
Is that the stable genius saying that?
30330. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. How many unsafe bridges you still have here in the state of Iowa? And
This is a guy who doesn't know what he's doing.
we choose truth over facts.
We'll see who's sleepy.
I'm not going nuts. 30330.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
All men and women created by the go. You know the thing.
All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
I got started out in HBCU. No mistake. Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
I just did Chris. No, I just did Chuck.
30330.
Around the nation, DYD Nation, Jeff Waldo here. Welcome to the show. It's Wednesday. We got a good show for you guys today. We have some very interesting updates on, of course, what happened yesterday. We've got Bloomberg gone. Warren thinking about being gone. Hey, what's there to think about? But anyway, we've got that. We've got actually good news from some of the exit polling. Not only in the Super Tuesday states, but also in some of the first states. And so, look, it's good news for policy, but also I'll break it down. Interesting stuff here. Then we've got Shaun King versus Rachel Maddow. Who's right? Having a little disagreement online, had last night. And then, of course, we've got a Trump story where Donald Trump's going to kill us all with the coronavirus. So, no, I'm kidding. But boy, that story is just stupid. Yeah, I know. I've really got you guys looking forward to that. All right. Anyway, terrible tease, but okay. So, look, before we get into the show, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. You can also support us by being a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation, or also using super chats. In fact, look, let your guys' voice be heard. Very important. I want to hear you guys and what you think. So, anyway, look, let me address yesterday. So look, yesterday was not a good day. Let's just say that. It could have been far worse, actually. And to be honest, it's not as doom and gloom as we all feel, right? When you actually look at the numbers going forward and what's going forward, you realize, okay, look, this was a setback. It's not the end of the movement. So this isn't like what happened in Super Tuesday 2016. Okay. And so, but nonetheless, I know a lot of us are a little bummed out. I'm actually glad that I didn't do a broadcast last night to get the results. For one, it's like I would only actually do those broadcasts if I had somebody to talk to, right? If I had like a co-host or whatever sitting in here with me or on Skype or something, and we discuss the results together and have some conversation. Okay. So that's why that's one reason why I don't do those. Another reason is that I was a little upset yesterday. So there's some snarky tweets that I fired off yesterday, but okay, all that stuff. But like I said, wasn't a good night generally for Bernie Sanders electoral wise. I mean, look, Bernie Sanders picked up 4 states. He got Colorado, Utah, California, which is a big one, and of course Vermont. Well, nobody saw that Vermont one coming. He really pulled it out of nowhere on that. But look, Biden got 10 states, including Texas. So now, thankfully, it's not winner take all like it is in the Republican side. So, you do well, and you get a certain proportion of the delegates that can work in Bernie's favor to his advantage if there's a big win. And it could also work against you if you don't necessarily win big, because it can also give your opponents, even if you win the state, but if you only win it by 3 points, well, then you still only get a couple more delegates than the next guy. And then the next person, as long as the viability threshold of 15% is met. And so good and bad. But that also means that while Biden actually did pretty good, won 10 states yesterday, he's not going to massively overtake Bernie Sanders in delegate counts. And so I think at the end of this, when all the delegates are apportioned, and they'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks, you're going to have Biden and Sanders pretty close. Maybe Biden might take a small lead, but, because of Texas, of course, or Bernie Sanders is a small lead. And we've got a lot more primaries left to go. Look, there's results here, by the way. California, 90% reporting. You do not have all 415 delegates apportioned yet. Right now, Bernie Sanders in California has 33.6% of the vote and 150 delegates to Biden's 93. Bloomberg got 14, Warren got 9, right? And so you've got, these results in California. In Arkansas, it's definitely Joe Biden, 17 delegates to Bernie's 9. Alabama, where Joe Biden just absolutely crushed it. And so, look, those are the states, by the way, that are not going to go to Democrats in the generally. But you also had states like Virginia that did go massively to Biden. And Virginia is considered a blue state. But also, as I think it was Emma Vidlin that pointed out, look, that's in a very establishment district. That's where all the Washington, D.C. insiders, defense contractor people, and all them who depend on the military-industrial complex, whatever, that's where they live. So, of course, they're not going to go for Bernie Sanders. And so, hey, look, there's that. A lot of different results. But Colorado, Bernie Sanders doing incredibly well, winning 20 delegates. And again, so far, they're not even all apportioned. And so at the end of this, I think it's going to come out with a Bernie Sanders very small lead or pretty much tied. So it's not insurmountable. There's still definitely a path for Bernie. Don't give up. Don't get, distracted by the media narrative right now that, oh, here comes Joe Biden with this massive, this massive comeback, and he's on the way to the nomination. No. It's going to be a long, knockdown, drag-out fight where it's going to be war. It's war between the establishment and progressives. And look, I don't know about you, but I'm going down with the ship. If the ship's going to go down, that is. I'm going to go down with fingers in the air, middle fingers in the air, saying F you to the establishment. So I don't know about you, but that's my plan if things don't go well. All right. Anyway, so let's get into... by the way, let's see. I want to read some of your comments, actually. Dana Fairbanks points out that Biden's cognitive decline is apparent to anyone with eyes and read. So that's also important. I made the comment on Twitter earlier today where now, well, up until now, in the debates, which are important for style, right? Those debates, Biden has had the basically the luck of not having to talk very much. It's true. It's true. You had 7, 8 candidates on the stage, 10 candidates on the stage, 2 different stages, 2 different nights. And so you had all of these candidates that would basically, argue with Bernie Sanders. Buttigieg was an anti-Sanders attack dog. And then Warren would go after Bloomberg. And Biden was basically like, I don't know, he was there. And then when he would speak, he'd be like, what are you talking about? Well, now it's a two-person race. It's Biden versus Sanders. So now he's not going to have the benefit of being surrounded by other people. No, he's going to have to talk. He's going to have to defend his own record. And with his, I know some of you get annoyed when I call them gaffes, but I don't know what else to call them, right? Where he just clearly messes up and shows that he's got some sort of mental decline going on, right? Or what I've called them, what I've said before, brain melt. Well, that's going to be very obvious in a two-person debate. So he doesn't have that to protect him anymore. Now, he does have Bloomberg's money now, since Bloomberg just made an endorsement of Joe Biden. So, we're going to see how many ads they're going to plaster everywhere. But if you're watching debates, and if more people tune into the debates now that it's a two-person race, well, you're going to see that mental decline in Joe Biden. And that's not going to look good. That's going to raise, hopefully, questions about, is this guy ready to take on Donald Trump? Can he actually win? And I'm hoping that a lot of people see that and go, maybe we should give Bernie Sanders our vote instead, because I don't think that Joe's going to do well against Trump. I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right. Anyway, is Tulsi still in the race? Barely. She won it. She won one delegate last night on Super Tuesday. I don't know why she's still running. But look, at the same time, like, is she really poaching that many votes from Bernie Sanders? Not really. But yeah, I mean, there's really no point to her running at this point. I mean, maybe to get some sort of, I don't know, cable news position. I don't know what her plan is. So I'm just, you know what? Doesn't even matter. Okay. Bloomberg's going to give him a lot of money. Yes, Lee, absolutely. And so, all right. You know what? Let's get into the stories.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Bloomberg. Down goes Michael Bloomberg. He is out. Now, with Joe Biden racking up multiple wins on Super Tuesday, it appears that the establishment angst about Joe Biden, as well as Bernie Sanders, running away with the huge delegate lead after Super Tuesday, has been relieved. And as such, Michael Bloomberg is now has announced that he is now done with this thing. He is out. Now, Bloomberg announced on Wednesday that he is suspending his campaign after a very poor performance on Super Tuesday, and has throwing his weight behind Joe Biden. Now, this is after he spent about $500 million on ads, in which basically he took the money, lit it on fire, and there it is. But now that money is going to go behind Joe Biden. So watch out for that. If you think you're done with Bloomberg ads, well, yes, you're done with Bloomberg ads, but now you're going to see just as many ads, but for Joe Biden. Oh boy. So buckle up, man. Now remember, the only reason Bloomberg entered this race is because he was very worried about Bernie Sanders winning and raising his taxes a little bit. Let's understand that, right? He was concerned, and he's like, oh man, if Bernie Sanders starts to get a lead, well, I'm going to jump into this thing. And then early polling, of course, had Bernie Sanders doing very well in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. And that's why, of course, Bloomberg said, okay, I got to get in there. I got to get in there. Well, Bernie Sanders did do very well in those states. Won New Hampshire, won the popular vote in Iowa, and then crushed in Nevada. Well, now, after Super Tuesday, Biden had a pretty good night. He won 10 states. One of the big prizes was Texas. He won Texas, but thankfully lost California. And so California, Colorado, Vermont, and Utah all went to Bernie Sanders, giving him a pretty good amount of delegates. And so now it's a race. It's a race between Biden and a race between Bernie. And so there wasn't any need for Bloomberg to divide the centrist vote anymore. And that's why he's out. That's why he's out. Now, interestingly enough, Bloomberg, I don't think he wanted to drop out. I think he was egotistical enough to think, no. If I win on Super Tuesday, if I do a good showing, then all that support that goes to Biden from, Klobuchar and Buttigieg, that's all going to go to me. Well, he vastly overestimated himself, as these billionaires generally do, right? And so, well, he got humbled. Let's just say he ate a big old piece of humble pie and, again, had to drop out. But look, his campaign, as I said before, it was actually hurting Biden the same way that Warren's campaign is actually hurting Bernie Sanders right now. So to understand, that led to massive pressure on Bloomberg last night to end his campaign and endorse Biden, and so he did. In fact, here's what he said in a statement. I've always believed that defeating Donald Trump starts with uniting behind the candidate with the best shot to do it. Now, let me stop there and point out that in new polls, Donald Trump edges out every single candidate except for Bernie Sanders. So wait, no, if you want to beat Donald Trump, you would support Bernie Sanders. Oh, but Bernie Sanders would tax your wealth, whereas Donald Trump would continue keeping taxes low on millionaires and billionaires. And then also, maybe he would get another round of tax cuts. So the choice for Bloomberg is obvious. It is very clear. I don't want Bernie Sanders anywhere near my money and have it be used to give poor people health care. Buh. I hate that. So anyway, now he continues in a statement after yesterday's votes. It is clear that that candidate is my friend and a great American, Joe Biden. I've known Joe for a very long time. I know his decency, his honesty, and his commitment to the issues that are so important to our country, including gun safety, healthcare, climate change, and good jobs. No, see, you don't know Joe, because that's not Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not an honest person. He got caught lying about being arrested in South Africa trying to visit Nelson Mandela. He lied about it. He lied about his record on civil rights. He lied about the fact that he had worked with segregationists to stop busing for African-American students. He actively worked against civil rights. I mean, what Bloomberg said couldn't be any further from the truth. Healthcare, no, under Biden's plan, 125,000 people over the next 10 years will die from lack of healthcare. 3% of the population will be left out under the Joe Biden healthcare plan, where you still would have private corporations, insurance companies dictating your healthcare and whether or not you get coverage. So give me a break. What a complete and total liar. Absolutely. No, Michael Bloomberg is always only out for his own class interests. And remember, Joe Biden famously told his donors, don't worry, under me, nothing is going to fundamentally change. He didn't misspeak there. That wasn't a gaffe. That's how he actually feels. So understand that. And by the way, calling them gaffes. Look, when he messes up his speech, right, and his eye explodes, which has also happened, that just gives ammunition to Donald Trump, which leads Trump to be able to make fun of him for it, as he already has. And Trump is just going to dismantle him on stage because that's what he does, right? He's going to hammer on him on his absolutely horrible record and make fun of him for all the gaffes. And again, gaffes, the guy's melting as we speak, his brain. Okay. So now, and look, let's be fair. One or two issues, okay, one or two times, that's fine, right? But this is near constant. In fact, let me show you guys a video. This was last night during Biden's Super Tuesday celebration.
Super Tuesday for nothing. By the way, this is my little sister Valerie, and I'm Jill's husband. Oh no, this is oh, you switched on me. This is my wife. This is my sister. They switched on me.
He literally forgot which one was his wife and which one was his sister. Oh, dear God. What a walking disaster. And absolutely. And here's the thing, right? So I keep mentioning he's going to have at least Bloomberg's money, right? Well, that is going to carry him, but it only can carry him so far. But understand, the media is propping up Biden. You have bad faith actors in the media that are hiding Biden's records of lying about getting arrested in South Africa. His record on opposing school integration, as I mentioned, all that stuff. Palling around with Strom Thurmond, supporting Social Security cuts and bad trade deals. You're not going to hear any of that on MSNBC or even CNN. And you also don't hear about the constant issues where he seems very, very confused. It's not a stuttering problem. No, his mental health, just like the president of the United States, is declining. He does not have what it takes to take on Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump, and here's one of the differences, right? And I contrasted this with Michael Bloomberg, is that, look, Michael Bloomberg, his brain isn't melting, okay? He's just a very uninteresting person. He's very bland. He's very egotistical. He's one of those people that, look, he's basically, if you have a crappy boss, it's like Michael Bloomberg, the arrogance, right? And Joe Biden, a lot of people like him because he's folksy, right? Well, Donald Trump, a lot of people like him because he's a clown. He is very entertaining, and people like an entertaining clown. And so there's that, right? And so when it comes to charisma, with Joe Biden's brain melting versus Donald Trump and his brain melting, but doing so in an entertaining fashion, well, I mean, look, it's just, any debate's going to be a shit show. I can guarantee you that. And maybe it'll get high ratings, but I don't think it's going to end up well for Joe Biden. Man. But as far as Michael Bloomberg is concerned, as this story is supposed to be about him, he's going to do what he does best and throw money at it, right? He's going to throw a bunch of cash Biden's way so they can blanket the airwaves with garbage, okay? Now, make no mistake, though. This was a complete disaster for Bloomberg. Him running in this race whatsoever, disaster. Why? Benjamin Dixon, friend of the show, revealed his decades of racism, right? And not only that, but his misogyny, his sexism, the fact that he has even more sexual harassment allegations against him than Donald Trump. I mean, the support that he had gotten for a brief amount of time really took the mask off the Democratic establishment, and shows that they don't actually care about running a racist, sexist billionaire against a racist, sexist billionaire, and them literally trying to copy the Republicans instead of going for someone who would actually win, Bernie Sanders. But again, he spent $500 million to get destroyed everywhere except for American Samoa, which I don't quite understand. And Bloomberg's image has taken a hit. And the good thing about that is that anybody who backs Joe Biden now is by default on the same side as Michael Bloomberg. And you can point out, but wait, Michael Bloomberg supports you, and Bloomberg is a terrible human being. You want to talk about decency, you want to talk about honesty, not when you have somebody like that backing you and paying for you and helping for you or in helping you win. So at least there's that. Okay. So we're going to go from Bloomberg to Elizabeth Warren. Following her disastrous loss in Super Tuesday states, Senator Elizabeth Warren is now taking a day to assess whether or not she still has a path to the Democratic nomination. Look, I got a quick answer for her. There is no path. Drop out. Right. I'm going to be straightforward, right? So now, according to a senior campaign official talking to The Hill, Warren flew home to Boston late on Tuesday after a rally in Detroit and has no public events scheduled for the day. Already that means no public events. Very likely she's going to drop out, but we don't know yet. Now, the campaign aide said, quote, Elizabeth is talking to her team to assess the path forward. Well, as I mentioned before, there is no path forward. She won no states outright. Yes, she won so far a total of 50 delegates. Now, that may increase, but she finished in an embarrassing third place in Massachusetts behind Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. That's her home state. Oklahoma, she also lost. That's where she's from. That's a disaster. That is an embarrassment. What are you doing, Elizabeth Warren? What are you doing? Why is she even in this race? Look, if the situation were reversed with her in the position where Bernie Sanders is and tied basically with Joe Biden and has a path to the nomination, well, then look, I'd obviously be upset because Bernie Sanders is my guy, right? But I'd be like, look, it's time to back Elizabeth Warren because at least she is not in mental decline like Joe Biden. And I don't think she'd be a guaranteed loss to Donald Trump. As I said before, polling does indicate right now that every candidate, save for Bernie Sanders, would lose to Donald Trump. But who knows, right? It might get better in a general election. But that's not going to happen. And look, I actually think that she would have made a pretty decent president. And, look, she showed that she could go hard against a billionaire. She took a crowbar to Michael Bloomberg. It was one of her best moments. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Elizabeth Warren is not going to pull a Biden and have an amazing comeback. She's only further hurting her image. A lot of my fellow leftists, you guys, I know you guys are done with her, right? And have been done with her for quite some time. I know. Snake emojis and all. I get it. And look, I don't know how many, but there are a certain amount of percentage of Warren voters still out there, yes, who do have Bernie Sanders as a number two. Those people will come over. I don't know how many, but there will be people that come over, especially if Warren does an endorsement. I mean, some people won't. Some people might go to Biden, and that happens as well. But it's very clear that she cannot continue on this path. It's a two-person race now. And every minute that she stays in eliminates any influence that she might have left. And by the way, she has already lost just about all of it. She got third in her own state. If she doesn't drop right now and endorse Bernie Sanders, then she risks becoming 100% irrelevant as opposed to 70% irrelevant. If she endorses Bernie Sanders, then she may get some of her voters to back him, some who might not go for Bernie Sanders originally, and especially if she makes a case for him when it comes to the policy. But look, I'm worried though. I know I'm sure a lot of you are as well, that I'm concerned that she will listen to her consultants. You know, those Obama consultants that have been steering her campaign basically off a cliff? Those same people, not only that, but she will listen to her incredibly bad political instincts and endorse Joe Biden. Oh, that'd be disastrous. It wouldn't make any sense to do that, in my eyes. Warren's policy proposals are closer to Bernie Sanders than they are to Joe Biden's policies. So if she actually cares about those things, then she would go to the person that is the closest to her. And so I don't understand what the play is, right? But again, here you have those idiot consultants that are saying, oh no, but understand, maybe if you back Joe Biden, you might get a cabinet pick and then maybe a chance to do some good. And look, if she thinks, well, Biden is likely to have it in the bag, I don't see her having the political courage to back someone unless she knows that they're going to be the winner. It's that thing, right? Look, Elizabeth Warren, you guys are right. She is a politician. She's an opportunist, right? But she also is terrible at politics. And I can see her making a terrible decision, just like she did when she stayed out of the race back in 2016. And believe me, you guys, I know you guys haven't forgotten about that. I haven't forgotten about that. And if she does the wrong thing again here, she can kiss whatever progressive votes or credentials she's gathered goodbye. Because at the end of the day, if this happens, no one is ever going to say a good thing about Elizabeth Warren again. She will be done in progressive circles. Don't do it, Warren. And do the right thing. Endorse Bernie. All right. So let's actually move on to some good news here. Super Tuesday didn't quite work out the way that progressive Bernie Sanders supporters hoped that it would, with Joe Biden mounting a pretty good comeback on the heels of centrist Democrats rallying around the former vice president. However, there's a piece of polling data out there that shows that there's a lot of hope for progressive ideals. So now I know the conversation around Bernie is, well, his policies will never work. They're pie in the sky. They're just impossible. The numbers don't work out. Judge Judy said fiscally impossible, right? And nobody wants it. Nobody wants these policies. That's why they're not voting for Bernie. Actually, in reality, polling says the complete opposite. In fact, according to Super Tuesday exit polls, they are very good for at least one piece of legislation, and that's Medicare for all. Now, Andrew Feldman, Democratic consultant, said, quote, important Super Tuesday takeaway that is flying under the radar. Every state with exit polls shows a majority support for replacing private insurance. It's winning by huge margins in a few. Well, now, wait a minute. I thought people loved their private insurance. I thought that people didn't want you to take away their private insurance and replace it with Medicare for all. Oh, it turns out they do. By margins, but how big are margins? Big. Now, according to political polls, right? A government plan for all instead of private insurance. So erasing private insurance, everybody gets a government plan, right? In Vermont, exit polls showed, and this shouldn't be a surprise, 73% support. Vermont, right? But wait, Maine, 69%. Texas, 63%. And this is all in favor of. I mean, in Texas, there's only 33% or a third that is opposed to this, right? And it goes down the list. Minnesota. Bernie Sanders did not win Minnesota yesterday, but guess what did win? Medicare for all with 62% support. Colorado, a state that Bernie Sanders did pick up, 57% in favor of. And look, Colorado tried to do their own single-payer system in the state, and they weren't able to vote for it. But the people there still support that policy. More, California, 57% in favor. North Carolina, 55%. Again, Biden won that. Oklahoma, 53%. Biden won that. Tennessee, 52%. Alabama, 51% to 43%. Virginia, 52% to 45%. And Massachusetts, 50% to 45%. These are all exit polls that show up to a massive majority of, 2/3 or even 3/4 of the people support replacing private insurance with Medicare for all. That's a win. Look, the numbers in Texas, as I pointed out before, That's huge. Now, it didn't turn out in a lot of these states for Bernie Sanders, which is interesting. But, and look, and let me explain why that is. Okay. It's because Democratic voters are voting not on policy issues, but they're voting on one issue. And that issue is defeating Trump. So you have to understand, people like us, we care about policy, and a lot of people care about policy as well. Even people that are polled, like, yes, healthcare is an issue that I care greatly about. The economy, I care greatly about it. But the number one issue that, forget the pun, trumps every other issue is getting rid of the current president. And so understand that for us, we're saying policy first, policy first, policy first. But we're disconnected with the rest of the voters that think, yeah, we love policy, but we're not going to do anything if we have Donald Trump in office. Right, but the counter to that argument is, yeah, but if we have Joe Biden in office, we're also not going to be any closer to Medicare for all. In fact, we might be further from it. And so further from it from Trump, that's not what I'm saying, but further from it from a policy standpoint than Bernie Sanders, definitely. And so I guess understand that there's a disconnect. Now, what Bernie Sanders has to do is to continue proving, and this is what buoyed him in the first 4 states and in the national polling as well, is that his wins in the early states, because the centrist field was so fractured, helped show people that he is electable. Oh, this guy can beat Donald Trump. So now he's got to keep proving that. And look, here's the thing, that they put so much more pressure on someone like Bernie Sanders to prove that he's electable than they do someone like Joe Biden, whose brain is melting out of his skull as we speak, right? They don't talk about Joe Biden's electability, right? But they only seem to talk about Bernie Sanders' electability, which means he has to, campaign and prove this, twice, 3 times as hard to prove that, yes, I can get elected. I can beat Donald Trump. And the polls back it up. And so he's got to be very strong and forceful on this, right? Now, the other thing, of course, that gets brought up all the time, and it's always, of course, geared against Bernie Sanders is, well, but can he unify the party? Because if we don't unify the party, well, then we're not going to be able to face Donald Trump and win. Well, here's the thing. The pundit class doesn't understand that Bernie Sanders absolutely can unify the party. And not only that, bring new people into it. Again, a lot of independents support Senator Sanders and are willing to join the party to vote for it. That's something that they miss every time they say, oh, but unite the party, got to unite the party. Look, and by the way, when they say unite the party, they don't mean unite the voters. Most voters support and like Bernie Sanders. Even if they're not voting for him, they're like, yeah, we really like Bernie Sanders. We like his plans, but then again, I don't know if he's going to be able to win. So I don't know. I guess I'll vote for the person that I know, and that person is Joe Biden, right? And so that's the problem that we're facing, right? But here's the thing. In poll after poll, it shows that he would mop the floor with Donald Trump. But Bernie Sanders hasn't had a chance in the debates to prove that yet. And I think that's going to happen soon. Joe Biden is an incoherent mess, and people are going to see that on the debate stage. And they might make the decision after seeing that of, oh, I guess there is somebody here that can beat Trump, and it's not the person that's spewing word salad. So, and of course, there's, other things that he could do, maybe change up his rhetoric just a little bit. A little less focus on a revolution, right? Because that scares old people. Yeah, I know the same people that can't even program their VCR. Well, those don't exist anymore, but you know what I'm talking about, or check emails. Are the ones saying, "Oh my God, Bernie Sanders is so scary." You think these people have access to online news to show that he's not scary? No, all they have is cable news. All they have is MSNBC, and so you've got to find a way to reach those people and show that, no, it is the media that is not being honest with you. Here's what's really going on. And Bernie Sanders isn't scary at all. He just wants to help your family. And so, again, some of those small changes in messaging and targeting, it might be really beneficial for him going forward. Because right now, the media has an advantage. They're massively in favor of Joe Biden, and they're going to continue to hammer him on these 2 points. Will he win against Donald Trump, and can he unite the Democratic Party? I believe he absolutely can. But as usual with progressives, you have to work twice, 3 times, 5 times as hard to prove your point, to prove your case. So anyway, as far as these polls are concerned, it's fantastic news. Matches the exit polls in the first 4 states where you had South Carolina voters in favor of Medicare for all, 50-44, Nevada 62-35. And that was important because here you had a very powerful culinary union telling its members, you shouldn't vote for Bernie Sanders because he's going to take away your union health care. Nevada voters said, yeah, actually, no, that's not the case. We want everyone to have as good a health care as we do. The only way to do that is guarantee Medicare for everyone. And so that victory did not get any really big play in the media. That point didn't get play in the media because the culinary union threw everything in the kitchen sink at Bernie Sanders to try to stop him, and they couldn't. Nevada is representative. There's a lot of Latinos, big Latino population there, and they carried him to victory, and lots of young people as well. And so the media ignored that. So we've got to keep hammering those points home, even if the mainstream media is not going to, and they actively, in bad faith, ignore those things to boost Biden. So, again, good polling, as long as that information gets out there, and I'm going to do my best to make sure to share it everywhere that I can, and to share, and you guys can help by sharing as much as you can as well, to get that information out to people who don't have access to it, who only have access to mainstream cable television. That's how we win. Okay. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We got Shaun King versus Rachel Maddow. That's a very interesting story. You're not going to want to miss that. Patron shout outs, all that stuff. More. Stay right here. We'll come right back. Around the Nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so let's thank a couple of patrons. Patrons are, what help makes the what helps make the show available, right? It helps us stay on the air, helps keep us afloat, especially after the YouTube demonetization and all this garbage algorithm changes and all that. So If you want to support independent progressive media, remember to go to patreon.com/TYTNation. I want to thank Llama Mama and Progressive Geek. I am also a progressive geek, so I like that. Thank you. And then, of course, channel memberships. I want to. I'm sorry. Those were channel memberships. Patrons. Now we'll go to that. I just pulled a Joe Biden, but at least I didn't confuse my sister with my wife. Boy, wouldn't that be weird? So let's thank Sven Riddell and Brian Newton. So those are our patrons. Patrons, channel memberships. Those are all the different ways to support independent progressive media. See, my brain's starting to melt now. No, I'm kidding. All right, anyway. Moving on here. Okay. On Tuesday, Shaun King tweeted out a report that the party was pressuring Michael Bloomberg to drop out and support Joe Biden. Now, that's, of course, in order to coalesce around the one candidate, Joe Biden, in order to stop Bernie Sanders from getting an advantage in the delegate counts and winning the Democratic nomination. So now Shaun King tweets this out on Tuesday. He says, breaking MSNBC and Maddow reported that multiple senior officials within the Democratic Party are interfering with the primaries to stop Bernie Sanders. Now, he provides a video clip showing NBC national politics reporter Josh Letterman saying that the Mike Bloomberg campaign was feeling, quote, intense pressure from Democrats Tuesday night to drop out. I'm going to show you that video because it shows exactly what he says.
Yeah, intense pressure tonight on Mike Bloomberg to bow out of the race, clear a path for Joe Biden. Brian, we've been talking to Democratic officials, senior people within the party, people who have a lot of influence, who have acknowledged that they have been in touch with the Bloomberg campaign, trying to make the case that now is the time, for the sake of party unity, for him to step aside, particularly as the party really coalesces behind Joe Biden. So far, no indications that's going to take place.
All right, so that's what he said. Influential people in the Democratic Party pressuring Bloomberg to drop out to coalesce around Biden. That's what he said, verbatim. So now, following that report, on Wednesday, after the horrific showing on Super Tuesday, Michael Bloomberg, he drops out and he coalesces around Joe Biden. Okay, and look, that's of course to be expected, right? So now here comes the interesting part. Now, Rachel Maddow, she comes out and says, Shaun, and basically accuses Shaun King of lying about this. So now here's her tweet. She said, what? No, I didn't report any such thing. So now the video I just showed you is of Letterman, right? Now that was on her show. They were having a panel doing Super Tuesday results. So now she explained that they reported that the party had asked Bloomberg to drop out so that Biden would have an easier time in the primary. An easier time against who? Bernie Sanders. So they were there to stop Bernie Sanders from winning the nomination. Well, that makes sense because Joe Biden's trying to win the nomination because he's trying to be president. And so it's a competition, right? That's kind of the whole point of running in a primary, is to beat your opponents, to stop them from winning by winning yourself. And so, look, there's no question that that Michael Bloomberg being in this race was hurting the prospects of Joe Biden. That's why he dropped out. So now what exactly was wrong with Shaun King's tweet when he said, hey, Maddow just reported that there was pressure in the Democratic Party to have Bloomberg drop out? Because Bloomberg himself wanted to win too. He thought that he had a better shot at stopping Bernie Sanders. That was his whole point, to stop Bernie Sanders so that Bernie Sanders doesn't win the nomination and raise his taxes. And so now when it was shown that Michael Bloomberg had no path, right, and that he was hurting Biden, of course they were going to pressure him. What was wrong about that? Multiple influential officials pressured Bloomberg to drop out. And that's true. So now Shaun King responds to that by saying, no, you absolutely did. and then said, and then pointed to a video because he brought receipts, right? And said, this is you. You then say the Bloomberg campaign has experienced intense pressure from multiple sources inside the Democratic Party that he needs to quit. She was basically quoting Letterman's report that had happened earlier on her show. In fact, I want to show you, this is exactly what Rachel Maddow said.
Nobody has ever done this before, but still it's striking to hear Letterman say that the Bloomberg campaign is experiencing intense pressure from multiple sources inside the Democratic Party that he needs to quit.
It is striking. That's what she said. It is striking that we have multiple sources in the Democratic Party telling Bloomberg, pressuring, intense pressure to get Bloomberg out to help Biden. What was wrong with that? Where's the lie? Now, look, Shaun King frames it as they're interfering with the party. Well, now, if they're DNC officials, Democratic Party officials, they are supposed to be neutral in this process to let the voters decide, right? But we know that's not the case. We learned that in 2016 and 2015 when the DNC put their thumb, foot, and entire body, and then 12 other people on the scale against Bernie Sanders, right? Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the former head of the DNC, had to resign in disgrace over being biased in favor of Hillary Clinton and doing that. We have documented evidence of that. We have the Podesta emails that showed that there was a clear preference inside of the Democratic Party for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. Nonetheless, you had some of the worst people that piled on Shaun King. And I'm going to read this, right? Because all of them are basically calling Shaun King a liar and saying, oh, do you have anything to prove it? Yeah, he has video. Those are your own words. I'm literally quoting you. In fact, Andrew Feinberg said, breaking, top Sanders surrogate, just making things up. No, they literally said that. She was referencing Letterman's report. That is news. People inside the Democratic Party are urging one candidate to drop out to support Joe Biden, to stop Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination. That is not news. That is true. That it actually is happening. Jesus. Ken Olin tweets, I'm sick of this. This is why the Sanders campaign is so mistrusted. The Sanders campaign is mistrusted. Oh, no, we don't trust those Sanders guys. Even though we're sitting in back rooms and saying we cannot, and we're holding literal stop Sanders meetings with Pete Buttigieg, and to try to strategize on how to prevent Bernie Sanders from becoming the Democratic nominee. No, but you guys, you're the ones who are mistrusted. You Bernie bros with your conspiracies. Jesus. Now he added, quote, Maddow did not report this, and senior officials are not interfering in the primaries. Bernie Sanders is a Democrat once every 4 years, and this shows you where he really stands. Maybe he's the one interfering in our primaries. Oh, that Bernie Sanders is an outside. He's not one of us. He's not a Democrat. No, he's only bringing new people into the party, but we don't want those people. We don't want you. No, we want good Democrats like Joe Biden, whose brain is melting as we speak. That's ridiculous. More, Dante Atkins says this, quote, this highlights how broken some people's brains are. If there's pressure on Bloomberg to drop out to consolidate behind a moderate, that's interfering. But pressure on Warren to drop out to support Sanders is good and normal. You just made a comparison between party officials and insiders with a lot of influence inside the party, even possibly super delegates, who will make the decision if there is a brokered convention of who is going to be the Democratic nominee. You are making a comparison between them and Twitter randos who support Bernie Sanders online. These are real. These are not real people. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. Oh, no, they're the same thing. No, Dante Atkins, totally not the same thing. Roland Martin says, where's the link to prove this, Shaun? Maddow says this is a lie. Either present the truth or delete the tweet. Well, he did. He brought receipts. literally in the video. Another very prominent anti-Sanders voice, Amy Siskin, says, blocking Shaun King and his BS and lies was one of the best moves I've made on Twitter. So basically what? You just basically just don't want to hear it, right? You don't want to hear anything that upsets your delicate narrative that is gaslighting the American people. It's ridiculous, right? But look, these people are a regular murderer's row of people who despise Bernie Sanders. Dante Atkins, Amy Siskin, Ken Olin, some of the others, I don't know, right? I think Roland Martin asked a legitimate question. Okay, where's your proof? You're making this charge. Where's your proof? Well, he's got the proof. He's literally got the receipts, okay? But a lot of them understand there's so many bad faith actors out there that are gaslighting you into thinking that it's just the Bernie bros with their conspiracy theories of how the Democratic Party elites inside the, leadership of the Democratic Party are not in favor of Bernie Sanders. They don't like him. They don't want his style of change because, look, the very thing that they point out, by the way, well, he's so hostile to the Democratic Party. Yeah, he's hostile because the leadership, under their leadership, the Democrats have lost to Donald Trump and over 1,000 seats in local and state races. Yeah, with that kind of, leadership, who needs the Republicans, right? When basically you are the Republicans. And you're basically saying everything the Republicans are doing is right. So here, we're just going to let you win because we suck. That's the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders says, you know what? I actually want to win on some issues, and I actually want some change. So you know what? We're going to come in and we're going to see what we can do to clean this place up. Of course, they're not going to be in favor of that because they make money off of it. The way that it is right now, they make money off the status quo with your consultants, because some of these people are very wealthy consultants that are anti-Sanders, right? And they don't want things to change. They are bad faith actors. So understand that them and the media are against Bernie Sanders and progressives. MSNBC used to be considered progressive. Not at all now. No, they run negative story after negative story when it comes to Bernie Sanders. They didn't cover Joe Biden lying about getting arrested in South Africa. They don't go after him about his civil rights record. No, who are they constantly attacking? They're attacking the progressives. They're attacking Bernie Sanders. And by the way, they have no progressives on. None at all. Now, at least CNN pretends, right? And says, we're going to have Alexandra Rojas on, who is, leader of Justice Democrats, right? We're going to have her on, and we're going to get progressive perspective. They allow people like Anna Kasparian, John Iadarola, and Cenk Uygur on. At least Chris Cuomo does. And so at least they're having some progressives on. Whereas MSNBC, progressives? No. Why would we ever have a progressive on? No, Chris Hayes is about as close as you can get, right? And look, Chris Hayes, I don't have a problem with Chris Hayes. I think he's a nice guy, right? But it is very clear that progressives are deeply outnumbered on MSNBC. There are none if few of them, right? So, come on. Samuel Vimes points out in the chat that Sam Cedar is the only Bernie supporter on MSNBC. And Sam Cedar doesn't have a show on MSNBC either. He's not a host. He is a contributor, and he's a brilliant contributor. And so, yes, that is the only person that they have. They have very few progressives. Okay. When CNN is doing better than the supposed left-leaning network, well, come on. I think it's fairly obvious. All right. Anyway. Now, look, it's not just MSNBC. I know they're getting a lot of our ire right now, but it's also the New York Times, the Washington Post. They write negative article after negative article on Bernie Sanders. But yet the New York Times has people like David Brooks. David Brooks is a ghoul. Terrible, terrible person. Racist takes about him. Oh, but he's a never Trumper, so suddenly he's okay. No, ridiculous. They smear Bernie Sanders over his statements on Cuba, where he said something nice about literacy programs, also about Russia. And they do that, but they don't show the context, and they don't show Bernie Sanders criticizing authoritarian governments of Cuba and of Russia. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So understand, this is what we're up against. These are bad faith attacks, bad faith media actors, people like, look, I used to like Rachel Maddow, right? Maybe she didn't realize it. Oh, turns out there is a Stop Sanders movement in the Democratic Party. I could see how that would make some people angry. No, they can't even admit it. They can't admit it that there is a bias. But she is in the bubble, and in the bubble, the Democrats are the good guys. And how dare you come after the good guys because we're better than Trump? I mean, how can you say that we're bad? We're not Trump. Yeah, but here's the thing. Liberals get so angry when you deprive them of the moral high ground. And that's what Bernie Sanders is doing. When he says, actually, nobody should die from lack of health care in this country, and nobody should be making a substandard, sublivable wage. Everybody should make a livable wage. Well, when you come at them from the left with better ideas than what they're espousing, they're going to get upset. Like, oh, well, how dare you? No, we're supposed to be the moral high ground people. No, we're supposed to be better. How dare you try to hit us with that? Come in with your high horse. Well, it's true. It's true. And look, they've been ceding ground to Republicans by accepting Republican framing on these issues, on Medicare for all, right? And by saying that, hey, look, we really can't do better than the current system. We want to do better than the current system, but we can't. I love the idea of Medicare for all, but it's just never going to happen. And Mitch McConnell is going to stop it. The Republicans are going to stop it. Well, then what are you going to do to stop the Republicans? Well, maybe you should actually run people who aren't Republican light, who actually do want to change, and who actually have a chance at winning these elections. Because what you're doing is you're running Republican light and moderate candidates all over the country without addressing what people actually need and want. That's the problem. But it is convenient for you to say, well, we can't change anything because the Republicans won't let us change. Whereas the Republicans, they're like, we'll do whatever we want. We will steamroll everything in order to get what we want. The hell working with Democrats. And it's never the opposite. Democrats always say, we got to work with the Republicans. We've got to reach across the aisle if we're going to get anything done. Republicans say, no, we're just going to steamroll you 100%. Sad day for you. It is not an even playing field. And they are ceding, Democrats are ceding the moral high ground to Republicans by agreeing with their ridiculously bad framing on the issues. Now, we've got to defeat the Republicans. And in order to do that, it seems like we've got to defeat the corporate Democrats first. And it's within this disconnect between corporate Democrats and progressives that bad faith actors insert themselves who have financial interests in keeping the status quo. And that really is the problem, right? And I'm sure that I'm not sure who those people are, the bad faith actors. I'm sure who some of them are. But I do know Shaun King is absolutely right about this. They are working against Bernie Sanders. They're trying to stop him. And they're trying to gaslight us whenever we call that out and point out that this is not an even playing field. And that all we're trying to do is to end the systemic corruption in the Democratic Party so they can actually represent the people again. Okay. Ray de los Santos says, why wouldn't the youth have their voice heard? Not enough engaged. It's so upsetting to hear how they have to work, so they can't be. I don't buy that. Look, man, what happened, Bernie Sanders talked about this. He talked about the low turnout on Super Tuesday among young people, and that we do have to get more young people engaged. And it sucks that we just, and look, you are right. Like, older people vote because they generally don't have 3 jobs to go to. More the older people vote because they're more comfortable. I'm not saying all of that. I'm saying more of them. There's plenty of you older people here that are not comfortable, that are absolutely on board with us. And I love you guys. But generally the trends are showing that you've got younger people that just are not interested, and maybe they think they can't do anything about it. And maybe they think, well, look, there's, I mean, what can I do about it? I'm working 3 jobs. I can't even get, I can't get out there to vote. And I can't do anything. And then there's something interesting too, by the way. I saw this tweet from somebody. I'd love to give them credit for it. But this tweet said, it's getting really difficult. I'm paraphrasing. It's getting really difficult to look things up. When I see something and I want to look it up, I go on the internet and I want to fact check something. Well, I go to the New York Times. Oh, you're out of free articles for the month. You go to Fox News, it's all free, right? Access anything you want. Well, then you go to the Washington Post. Oh, you're out of free articles for the month. Sorry, you can't read this. Go to Breitbart, it's free. Go to Daily Caller, it's free. And then he asks the question, where do you think people are going to go? It's true. Where are people going to go? They're going to go where they can access the information without a paywall. Well, that's why this show's free, right? That's why I asked for your support, to keep the operation going. But I've never put up a paywall on stuff that you can see, right? I mean, the worst is you'll have to sit through an ad, right? And that really does help us survive, by the way. But it's always been a situation where, everybody who wants to access this information, this show, can always do so, and I want to keep it that way, right? Now, the New York Times, Washington Post, mainstream media, progressive, like they don't keep it that way. And it's because generally for progressive news or liberal news or whatever factual information, it's expensive, right? To do this stuff, to do the research, to put out reporters. Whereas, Daily Caller can throw out something together. Breitbart can throw something together that's not true and just call it facts. Not only that, but they've got billionaires that back them. And so they're getting all these money from billionaires to put out propaganda. It seems like we don't have an even playing field, even when it comes to accessing information that should be vital. And so that is a huge, huge problem. And so, as Ravaging Wolverine points out, free and funded by donations from rich propagandists. That's right. That's right. All right. Look, I went off on a tangent, but let's go forward here. One more story for you guys. I'm going to try and make it quick. President Donald Trump seems to be having a hard time understanding how vaccines work. Not surprising, as he used to be, or said he was an anti-vaxxer. So, believing in those anti-vax conspiracies. So now, look, now that he's president, he's of course backed off on that and says, oh, no, I believe in vaccines. I believe they work. I just don't know how they work. So now, for the second time, it's being reported that he has had to have experts explain how this works. And by the way, this is from a report from CNN's Jim Acosta, who tweeted this out, that at the start of an event at the National Institute of Health, which, by the way, in Donald Trump's budgets, he takes money away from, infectious diseases expert Tony Fauci was forced to, again, explain to Trump how long it takes to develop vaccines. Because right now, Trump is looking for a vaccine, a quick fix for coronavirus. So in order to stop the stock market from continuing its downward fall, right? So now Acosta tweets, start of Trump event at NIH, infectious diseases experts Dr. Fauci explaining to Trump how long it took to develop vaccines for past viruses. Mark Knoller adds, using slides, the NIH infectious disease chief, Dr. Anthony Fauci, briefed President Trump on the origins of the virus and its relationship to other viruses. President Trump thanks the NIH team for its work, said they have made some, quote, great finds already, which he failed to elaborate on. That was Tuesday. right? On Monday, he had a meeting with a dozen pharmaceutical executives. It's a dozen pharmaceutical industry executives. And in this meeting, he demanded a rush vaccine. You guys, I got to get this thing under control. Can you hurry up with the vaccine? During the meeting, according to Acosta, several of the experts and a pharmaceutical industry CEO had to explain to the president multiple times that they cannot necessarily rush a vaccine onto the market. Now, by the way, those vaccines, that research is funded by taxpayer money, right? And so they couldn't guarantee the time frame. The time frame I understand, right? But they said that when a vaccine will be available, which will be about a year, doesn't mean that it will be available for everyone. Doesn't mean that we can actually, Americans can actually afford it. So that's another problem, right? And that doesn't seem to be addressed by the Trump administration. Nonetheless, right? The president, they explained, was sort of asking as he was going around the room, well, how quickly can we get a vaccine out in the market and do it in 3 or 4 months? He says, we got to get it in 3 to 4 months. No, I can't wait a year. But Dr. Fauci is telling reporters, no, we can't get it in 3 to 4 months. It's impossible. There's numerous amounts of testing that we have to do to make sure that it's actually safe and that it does what it's supposed to. And so we can't get it out in 3 to 4 months. It's going to take at least a year for this vaccine to come out. But Trump's an idiot. And he's running around saying, I can't wait that long. I can't wait that long. Well, again, the thing is, and I understand, and I agree, we can't wait, right? Like, yes, this is a serious issue. Maybe not quite as serious as the media is making out to be. Like, it's not hysterical, but it is serious. But like, and there something definitely needs to be done. Washing your hands is one of the most important, ways to prevent the spread of any sort of infectious disease. But Donald Trump's not worried about that. What Donald Trump's worried about is the markets. The stock market, again, has taken a huge dive since this whole coronavirus thing came out. And so, and since it started spreading. So he's like, my precious markets are going to hurt my image and make it so that it's harder for me to get elected. He doesn't care about the suffering. He doesn't care about people dying or Americans even getting access to the vaccine when it's available. He just cares about solve the problem now so the markets can get back to being good and I can say that I have a good economy. Understand that, right? And I understand the economy is a concern. Of course it's a concern. But I would say that people's lives are more important. But here we are. This is Donald Trump, right? And nothing matters to him more than his ego and, more importantly, his money. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Also, consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/GYDNation. Subscribe to the channel, share the videos, all that stuff. So thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you guys tomorrow.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.